how do you work with senior leaders, or how have you worked with senior leaders in the past to really help them understand that?
I think, Linda, first of all, it's a good question. And I think, we have to show up in our actions every day about bringing that value to the business. And I think that comes through not sitting with senior leaders and trying to convince them that HR is really important, but to sit with them and understand what is it that they're trying to accomplish in the business. And I think whether it's business or whether it's in government, you still have that conversation. What's important? What's challenging? What's driving success in our organization? What's frustrating? The question that I think all of us picked up on at one point in our career is what keeps you awake at night?
Yeah.
Those types of questions mean a lot, I think, to executives, because it's a reach out saying, I want to be a partner. I want to help. I want to understand the business or the agency's mission. And I want to be a part of helping to deliver on, success, or creating the environment where, employees can deliver on that success.
Hi there, and welcome to the HR podcast. This is Linda Misegadis
and Cyndi Manuel, and we'll be your co-hosts. After spending years working in and with HR, we thought, why not start a podcast to support the important HR community? We believe the way things have always been done isn't necessarily what's going to work in the future. So we're diving into topics that support HR and working women as they navigate the future of work. We're talking about professional growth and also how we can support each other as human beings.
We can't wait to bring you insights from HR experts, thought leaders, and inspiring women who are making a real difference in their organization and communities. They'll share their journeys and tips on balancing work and life in a better way. We're excited to learn alongside you and hope you'll pick up some great takeaways, from tips and tricks to worksheets that you can actually use in your daily life. So grab your favorite beverage
or lace up your walking shoes and join us for the HR Her Resources podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Her Resources podcast, where we explore heart, hustle, and humanity behind the work that we do. I'm your co-host. I'm here with my co-host, Cyndi Manuel, in the studio today, and we're delving into a topic that resonates deeply with so many of us in the HR world, which is how do we drive value and care for others without losing ourselves in the process? And it's no secret that HR professionals are often the emotional anchors of their organizations, at least good ones are. We're the ones championing wellness, navigating change, and supporting everyone else, sometimes at the expense of our own well-being. So today we're asking the tough questions. What does it really mean to lead with heart in HR? And how do we protect our own energy while doing so? So Cyndi, it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I'm loving the new glasses. They look beautiful.
These are my I can't see anymore glasses, and so I got these
End
ones
of the week.
Yes, these ones are specific for the computer. I can't use these anywhere else, but boy, they sure have made a big difference in being able to actually see what's in front of me.
Nice on you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you. How was your week?
Wonderful. It's nice to be at a Friday, though. And I am very excited about our guests today, because we all worked together before. Eons ago. I was thinking about it too, Shelie. We were working together when I was still pregnant with my daughter, who is almost 22 years old now.
That gives us a marker for how long that we've known each other.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah,
it is. Well, and to your point, Cyndi, I'm excited to have Shelie in the studio. She's just such a powerhouse guest, and her career has spanned industries, continents, and boardrooms. And so, Cyndi, I'm going to hand it over to you to actually introduce Shelie to all of our listeners.
Honored to. Yes, Shelie, we're so happy you're here. Shelie Gustafson is a seasoned global executive and board director with deep expertise in corporate transformation, governance, and human capital strategy. She most recently served as Executive Vice President and Chief People Officer of Jacobs Solutions, a $16 billion global professional services firm where she led where she led enterprise-wide workforce strategies, large-scale restructuring, and complex merger and acquisition integrations, including one of the industry's largest transactions. Her leadership in talent effectiveness, operating model design, and cost optimization has delivered measurable performance gains and created long-term shareholder value. With executive experience across professional services, technology, financial services, and energy, Shelie has guided organizations through significant transformation in complex global environments. Shelie's recognized for building high-performance teams. I was a part of one of those, so I'm proud to be a part of one. Advancing ethical and inclusive cultures, and advising on board-level matters such as executive compensation, CEO succession, and risk oversight. A trusted voice on the future of work, Shelie brings perspective on how evolving business, technological, and societal shifts are reshaping talent strategies and organizational resilience. She's currently exploring a portfolio career and serves on the boards of SCIO Automation, GmbH, and the HR Certification Institute, which is awesome, HRCI. She earned her bachelor's degree in business from Regis University and a master's degree in communications from the University of Colorado. Shelie and her husband, Rick, enjoy traveling and hiking. Welcome to the Her Resources podcast, Shelie. We're happy to have you.
I'm happy to be here. I was so excited when you reached out, Cyndi, to be able to talk with you and Linda. And it brought back a lot of memories thinking about the work that we did at a previous company. And gosh, even though it has been a long time ago, such great memories from that.
Yeah, Linda and I talk about that a lot too, huh, Linda?
Oh, gosh, we sure do. Well, I have to tell you, an interesting little fact that Shelie may not actually know is that Michael Abebe, who is going to be joining us on a future episode, actually used to work for Jacobs as a project manager. And he reached out to me via LinkedIn because of my connection to Shelie about a job that I had. And I got a chance to mentor and work with him. Now, he didn't end up working here, but he has since taken on a job with the state of Georgia and is doing some amazing things. But he had nothing but amazing things to say about Jacobs and the opportunities and experiences that he had. But it just really kind of shows the power of network and connections, right?
Absolutely. It is so important. Another topic for another day. I can talk a lot about connections and mentoring and how all of that got me to the variety of roles I had.
Absolutely.
We would love that. Well, we know, Shelie, you are a huge advocate that HR's purpose is to drive value. And we would love to hear more about, I know you've got a purpose statement that you ask of your team, and we'd love to hear more about that. And why is that important to you?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that, Cyndi, because I think it's so important no matter what role people have in HR, that they're really clear about why we're here for our organizations. Many times when I ask people, especially kind of new into HR, why did they join HR? I get a response about, well, I really like people, which is great. That's really important, but there's so much more to HR, and we have to make sure that we're always focused on driving value for the business. So, through lots of thinking on this and mentors I've had, really landed on HR's purpose is to accelerate the business strategy and to bring to life the employee value proposition. Just pause for a moment on employee value proposition. EVP, that's very familiar for some people, but maybe not for everybody. And that answers the question, why should an employee come work at this company and stay with this company? So it gets at the employee experience as well. And I just think that those two things go hand in hand. And in HR, again, no matter what job we have in HR, if we're clear on our purpose, it becomes a filter for making decisions about where we focus our time, where we focus our effort, which is going to take us to some of the other things we're going to talk about today. And so I think having that clear statement, whether it's this or something different, it creates alignment and it helps HR ensure that they're focused on impact and not just activity.
That so resonates with me. I think it's not only is it good for HR and organizations to live by, but I would say just personally as well. It's a good filter for decisions that you make, professionally and personally.
Sure, I
Well,
love
and I
that.
like what you said there too, Shelie, because this is something that we see so often is really defining what is HR's role in any organization. And I
Yeah.
think that there are all sorts of opinions about that, right? I mean, like from an employee, what do I think my HR person is supposed to do for me? What role do they play in the organization? As a manager, I look to HR. As a leader, I'm looking to HR and really kind of understanding what you just said there and that clarifying what is your purpose in the organization and kind of defining that out. Because I think today we just kind of lump human resources into just this thing that we call HR without really understanding what true purpose HR does serve in an organization. And it's so much more than just benefits or onboarding or offboarding. There are so many different aspects of it. So I love what you said there, and I can't wait as we dig into the more of this. So
Yeah.
I think you also are saying it's not only HR needs to be clear on the purpose, but the entire business
oh my
needs
goodness,
to
yes.
be clear on what those expectations are from their HR organization and have that alignment. So
Yeah.
I love that reflection you provided.
Very much a strategic perspective there for
Mhm.
sure. We know that HR is often described as the backbone of the organization, supporting employees, supporting leaders, supporting the business itself, as you just mentioned. So, what has that responsibility felt like for you personally, Shelie?
Yeah, I'll answer your question about how it felt to me personally, but I'm going to just comment even on the question for a moment, and that is the word support. So I oftentimes, when I was working with my team, we would talk about, are we really supporting or is it something beyond that? And we landed on the word partnering
Oh, love
because I
that.
think that HR has to partner with leaders, executives, even the board, various people. I think of all the partners that I've worked with in legal and finance and IT, because Linda commented about HR being responsible for so much change in an organization. It doesn't just happen through the HR organization. It's all of our partners that have to be aligned and drive that. So I do think that whether HR is the heart or the backbone, I don't know what the right word is, but definitely HR has a huge role in really an organization's success. And for me, I just felt it was a huge responsibility. It's a huge responsibility, but also an honor to be able to be in a role, to be able to have so much influence in an organization. And I don't attribute that just to having a senior leadership role. I think anybody in HR has an opportunity to have a lot of influence in their organization. And it goes back to that purpose statement and the employee experience, whether it's benefits, whether it's recruitment, whether it's being an HR business partner, whether it's HR technology. What HR does touches every single person in the organization.
Yeah.
And that in itself just is a huge responsibility, but it is such an honor as well to be able to, work in companies, especially that really value their HR organization and have a positive impact on the business and the employees. I think so many of the offerings that HR delivers can help shape careers, can help individuals grow, can actually impact families as well.
Yeah.
And so for
Right.
us to step back and take a look at that responsibility that we have is important to do. But I think it's two part honor and responsibility.
Yeah, I
Like, I'm
love that.
curious, when I hear you talk about that, and this is probably a shout out to our listeners who are in the government space, because I'm curious, how do you work to educate senior leaders on how critical the role of human resources is in an
Mm,
organization? Because we still find even today that HR is not as valued of a role in the public sector as we see it in the private sector. And it's an interesting dynamic to me. And part of it I know is structural. I mean, government is not business. And so they operate fundamentally different. But the role of human resources is so critical even in public sector. How do you work with senior leaders, or how have you worked with senior leaders in the past to really help them understand that?
I think, Linda, first of all, it's a good question, and I think we have to show up in our actions every day about bringing that value to the business, and I think that comes through not sitting with senior leaders and trying to convince them that HR is really important, but to sit with them and understand what is it that they're trying to accomplish in the business. And I think whether it's business or whether it's in government, I mean, you still have that conversation. What's important? What's challenging? What's driving success in our organization? What's frustrating? The question that I think all of us picked up on at one point in our career is what keeps you awake at night?
yeah.
Right.
Those types of questions mean a lot, I think, to executives because it's a reach out saying, I want to be a partner. I want to help. I want to understand the business or the agency's mission. And I want to be a part of helping to deliver on, success or creating the environment where, employees can deliver on that success. So I think, Linda, in answer to your question, it is how we show up every day, but it's really bringing questions and a perspective to those leaders. And I'm going to just step back for a moment. Oftentimes we wait to be invited to the table
Mm,
and we
Yeah.
can't wait. We just need to show up at the table.
Yeah.
And examples of that is many times I've said, "Oh, I heard there was a meeting. I'd like to join because I think I can, bring a perspective on X, Y, or Z." And I think that HR professionals need to be confident in their capabilities and in, their relationships to be able to be at the table and not just wait to be invited.
I like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was something that when I was working for you, Shelie, years ago as my manager and mentor, you and also another one of our HR leaders were very much go get a seat at the table to all of us who are HR business partners. And it did make a lot of difference. It's also back to what you were saying before, Shelie, with the great responsibility, you're very humbled by what the level of impact and influence that HR has. That probably creates sometimes a bit of difficulty in self-preservation. And is that something that you have experienced? And can you kind of share with us, how you kind of find your well-being and preserving that?
I think that's probably a challenge for most employees. I do think there's some nuances to HR that, is different than other people, but I've certainly talked with many managers and, they think about how do I keep giving, to my team, and they kind of lose sight of themselves, either taking care of themselves or taking care of their career. I think that, sometimes
Yes.
gets set on the back burner sometimes.
So
And
true.
I know for HR that, it's definitely a role where you're always providing something. You're providing education, you're providing information, you're providing coaching, you're providing counseling, you're providing advice, you're providing resources, you're giving. And sometimes it's easy to kind of lose sight of maybe I need to do something for myself. And that can be maybe I need to take time to attend a webinar. Maybe
Yep.
I need to take time to learn. Maybe I need to take time to re energize. I think this is true of parents, which I'm not a parent, so forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but I think whether you're a parent, a manager, a caregiver, actually of any type, you have to be able to take care of yourself in order to be able to serve others.
Mhm.
And so finding, what that is, because I think it's different for every single person, I think is important. So we can show up always at our best and show up with the energy that our organizations and our people need from us.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that when we see good leaders emulating that behavior, it helps give us the
So true.
permission to also take care of ourselves. And so, if you see your manager is doing that, or your manager's manager is doing that, it gives you that permission to say, "Hey, it's okay." And if they can do it, I can do it as well. And if they're prioritizing it, I also should be prioritizing, right? So I think it kind of speaks to that
Mm.
whole importance of the leadership modeling based off what
Mhm.
you've shared with us. So,
Such a good point, Linda. Are there any kinds of personal habits or boundaries that you have found to be effective, Shelie? You were just talking about coming off of a vacation,
Mhm.
which is great. And I find, even like a long weekend, we're heading to New Mexico here in a few weeks, and just a long weekend away can be very energy infusing, so that then, as you mentioned, then you can kind of pour into other people because you
mhm.
have kind of put on your oxygen mask first, so to speak. So, what kind of personal habits or boundaries have you found to be most effective for your own resilience and energy?
Mhm. So for me, it is the opportunity to be outside and to walk. I used to be a runner. I'm not a runner, haven't run for many years, but to be outside and walk, and that's really, really important to me. And I
Mm.
know that I show up better every day if I can find time every day. Doesn't always work out every day, but to at least, get that opportunity to be outside and exercise. And in the wintertime, if it's too cold, the treadmill, I guess,
Yeah.
suffices. um, I think that there's several things that people need to do, and this isn't just HR professionals, but it certainly applies to everybody. But you have to look at what does give you energy and what saps your energy, because
Mhm.
there's certain things I think that can sap our energy more than other things. In HR, I know that when I or my team has had to do a reduction in force, a
Mm.
layoff, I
Yeah.
mean, that's really, really hard and emotional. And, it's just can take a lot to work through something like that. And there's many other things too, but that comes to mind. So for me personally, it's about walking, it's about time with my husband. Um, and vacations are nice, but I think that everybody needs to look at what is a practice you can put in place every day. I
Yeah.
used to encourage my team, schedule time with yourself during the day. Put it on your calendar, because if you don't put it on your calendar, it's easy for it to, time to get taken on doing something else. And even when you schedule it, it's hard to stay committed. But,
So true.
Yeah.
we would talk amongst our team that, you wouldn't cancel a meeting with your boss. You wouldn't cancel a meeting with, your the
Yeah.
business leader if you're an HR business partner. Maybe you shouldn't cancel this appointment that you have with yourself. But everything is different, or people, I guess, get their energy from different things. Some people, it's maybe journaling, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's certain time with kids or whatever. But just, trying to understand that. There's a book. I wrote it down here so I could give you the exact title. Kind of
Awesome.
an oldie but a goodie. It's called The Power of Full Engagement. Managing energy, not time, is the key to high performance and personal renewal, by
Mhm.
Jim Lohr and Tony Swartz.
Love
Probably
that.
was exposed to that book, gosh, I hate to say 10, maybe even 15 years ago. Don't even know if I read the whole book, but the concept of managing your energy really stuck with me,
Yeah.
because oftentimes we get in this work life balance concept.
Mhm.
And for me, I've been an advocate that there's really no such thing as work-life balance.
I agree.
Because that says, okay, 50% of my time will be at work.
Yeah.
50% of my time I'm going to do whatever personally I want to do. And I used to work with somebody and she would say, some days work is going to win. And some days your family or your personal life is going to win.
Yes.
And so it's more of a work-life integration. But this point about
Yes.
managing your energy and knowing what saps it and knowing what gives you energy, I think is a really good concept to think about. And
Yeah.
yes, take vacations, but think about those little actions that you can do every single day that are going to help replace those things that drain us.
When you know
love
what I like
that.
about what you said there too, Shelie, is that it's your personal responsibility as well to figure those things out and to find what is important to you and then integrate that into your whatever you're calling your work life. And I like the word integration because you're right, there
Yes.
is no such thing as work-life balance. And I hate the fact that we even still use that term today because it does not exist, especially in today's world, although I would argue it never really existed. So I like the idea of work-life integration and then finding that out because I also think if you view it through the lens of integration, it is maybe easier to then figure out what are the things that sap my energy, what do I need to do to take care of myself, and then integrate that into how I operate from a work-life perspective as well, instead of waiting for someone to tell me how I'm supposed to create work-life balance or having my company tell me, oh, well, we want you to have work-life balance. So you're sitting there going, okay, well, how do I do that? What am I supposed to do? So I love the idea of the integration and the idea of taking personal responsibility and figuring those things out.
Yeah.
That point about personal responsibility is so important because your company can't do it for you.
No.
It's probably not their responsibility to do it for you.
Right.
So you're exactly right on. I think as a manager, and this goes back to your question as well, Cyndi, I also think managers, though, can role model things. And I
Agree.
think that's kind of what you're asking about. But one of the things that took me a long time to kind of learn this is, I'd be on email in the evening, which was fine. It worked for me. But it kind of set the expectation for my team that they had to be on email in the
Yeah.
evenings too. So I got to a point where, not 100%, but I really tried to use the delay send feature in my
Yes.
I
email.
love that.
So I
Yeah.
could, have some quiet time and work in the evenings, but it would go out in the morning during the daytime. And I do think managers do need to think a little bit about that in terms of how they're role modeling some things.
That's a really good point.
It is
Yes.
so good. There's a podcast that I really enjoy listening to. Her name is Liz Moody. And recently she had an episode where she spoke about micro habits. And so one micro habit that she spoke to was getting up once an hour for 4.5 minutes. Now, you wouldn't think that is that big of a deal, right? And she was like, go and dance around, go and run up and down your stairs, go and take a quick walk around the block. Just 4.5 minutes makes, it was somewhere between 30 to 40% improvement in people when it comes to cancer prevention.
Wow.
And she said she had a heck of a time believing that. I think it was a Stanford, but I don't know 100%. I don't remember 100%, so I don't want to quote anything. But it was somewhere between like 30 and 40%. And I was emptying the dishwasher at the time, and I was like, how could me emptying the dishwasher and like dancing around my living room for 4.5 minutes, but it collectively, over time, can make that big of a difference. Plus, you just feel refreshed and you can go back to work and, feel a little bit better. And so there's so many of those things that you can do. So I love
And
all
what I
that you
like
guys
about what
both
you said there, Cyndi, is it's little. That's very doable. It's very doable to get up and walk away from your desk and spend that 4.5 minutes doing something other than looking at your email, and probably leave your phone at your desk, right? Don't take it along on the journey with you. And that way you can really take that. But just those little tiny things, sometimes we forget that just the smallest actions can have the biggest impact. So
For sure. Yes. At the Delta Principle, we are transforming the way you experience change. Have you ever experienced an organizational change where your employees pushed back because it was too much, too fast, or they just didn't understand why they couldn't do things the way they've always done them? What about where communication was non-existent or unorganized, with important updates getting lost in the shuffle, leaving people confused? And have you ever experienced change where morale was at an all-time low because the change felt overwhelming and not aligned with your organization's culture? If you are being asked to lead an important organizational change, especially if you're new to leading change, or if you're just feeling overwhelmed, the Delta Principle is here to support you. We work closely with you as a trusted partner, co-creating real-world solutions to address your unique challenges, and we equip you and your organization for future success. Are you gearing up for your next transformation journey or exploring ways to strengthen your change management skills? Then let's connect. This year, we're thrilled to introduce Leading Change, a training designed for leaders driving organizational initiatives, and Navigating Change, a training tailored to empower teams and adapting to change with confidence. Our coaching and training sessions are fully customizable to meet your organization's unique needs. Reach out today to see how we can partner with you to make your next change a success. You can find us on LinkedIn or by emailing us at info@thedeltaprinciple.com.
I think we learned a lot through COVID, things like that. I
Oh my
think,
gosh, yeah.
we learned through kind of thinking about other boundaries that you asked, Cyndi. One of the other things that for me, and I kind of challenge other, especially senior leaders on this, is the amount of time that they travel.
Mm.
I was never a road warrior. I love to travel. I love to get out and see employees and see projects and things that we're working on. But I didn't get on airplanes week after week after week. And my view was there's really good people on my team around the globe. And,
Yeah.
I can do this virtually quite a
Yeah.
bit. And I think
Yeah.
that's another piece about taking care of yourself. Because I've seen too many people that travel so much and they're not healthy and they don't feel well. And it's,
Mhm.
can only have probably a negative impact on family life as well. So I think there's just lots of
Absolutely.
things in all of our lives that we can just step back and take a look at. What's helping me be effective? What's depleting me? And what are the big changes or the micro changes that I can make that will have a positive impact?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I think I remember reading something. I don't remember the name of the company, but it was a CEO of a large company who, during going through COVID, exactly to your point, Shelie, really learned that he did not have to travel all over the place. He didn't have to be in all of these locations because he could do this virtually and be just as effective, if not more effective, in taking that approach. Not to mention, he could actually be more available. So if he had, as he was a global leader, and so trying to find the balance in all of those different pieces, but he found himself being not only more available to his employees and his organization, but to your point, also to his family and to his personal connections in life as well. And so I do think that we get stuck in an old way of doing things and old patterns, and we think, oh, that's the only way we can do it. And I do agree with you. There were a lot of positives that came out of COVID. And one of those positives was the idea that you don't have to do things the way we always did them. There are actually better and more effective ways for us to try and approach these things. So
At least to create a different balance, right?
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, if there are HR professionals listening today who feel depleted, is there any kind of advice that you could offer? And you've already offered some of it, but anything that you would really reiterate, Shelie, as far as just taking care of themselves and kind of determining what those things are for them? Back to your point, it's specific to each person, right? What your energy is.
It really is specific to each person. I mean, I think that the individual has to take stock on their own in terms of, what is depleting them. And it could be that their job is very routine and that they're, kind of burnt out on it. It could be that they don't feel that they have all the resources or the knowledge to deliver on something that they're, responsible for. And so that's depleting. It could be just the nature of work that could be depleting. And so figuring that out, and I think having candid conversations with their managers is
Yeah.
really important. And looking to see, is it possible to restructure or reshape something? One of the things that has come to mind for me is, I think certain functions in HR are seasonal,
Oh,
but certain ones are not. So,
Yeah.
for example, in a public company, getting ready for board meetings,
Mm.
those people that work in compensation, they have this quarterly ramp up of just lots and lots of work, or maybe at the end of the year doing salary reviews and salary
Yeah.
increases, so compensation. Benefits, open enrollment, is somewhat seasonal. And what I mean by that, there's consistent work going on throughout the entire year, but it does become a little seasonal in terms of the push or the rush
Mhm.
or the
That makes
extra long
sense. Yeah.
days. And so I think if, people can kind of step back too and say, all right, how can I adjust some things? So maybe I take a little bit more time for some things I personally want to do when it's not quite the rush. I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to be effective. I'm still going to be available, but I'm going to, do some different things for me, or I'm going to schedule my vacation and I'm really going to take it, and I'm not going to get online because I've got other people that can fill in for me, and I trust them and I rely on them. So I do think that taking stock, each person needs to do that, having open and candid conversations with their leader, their manager, and then staying committed to the action plan that they put in place for themselves.
yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Shelie, I'm curious about what made you decide to get into human resources? Because a lot of
Good
people
question.
that we talk to frequently, it's that they fell into it. It was accidental, and I do wonder if sometimes the difference between I fell into it versus I purposefully made a decision that human resources is what I want to do, how that might differ in their vision and approach and opinion of the role of human resources.
Mm. Well, I'm one of those who fell into it, Linda.
Yeah.
So I had worked for an oil and gas company. I'll keep this short. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I graduated from high school. So I went to work and I went to school at the same time. And I was an administrative assistant for an oil and gas company. And sort of two things happened. This is going to date me. It was the era of total quality management
I remember
and
TQM.
Yeah.
TQM. That's right. I loved it.
Uh,
And so I got involved in that. And there was a person that worked down the hall from me, and she did OD, organizational development.
Mhm.
I didn't know what that was. So I remember having a conversation with her about that. And between those two things, it ultimately led me into talent development. And
mm,
then it was when I was working with you, all of you, we did some merger and acquisition work.
Yes.
we did indeed.
And then I moved from sort of talent development and organizational development that Cyndi and I partnered on, and did some M&A work. And I don't know if you remember this, but I went to Germany for what was supposed to be 2
Yeah.
months, Cyndi, and I was there a year.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that really shifted my career
Yeah.
into doing different HR work and lots of
Mhm.
merger and acquisition work, which I fell in love with. But that's how I got into it, is kind of by chance and through some other
Yeah.
avenues. So I
That's
don't
interesting.
know, Linda, in answer to your question, if you sit down and select, I'm going into HR versus you kind of fall into it.
Mhm.
I don't know. I've worked with some people that have had no HR experience. In fact, I've brought them in to my HR organization,
Mm,
and they've been
that's awesome.
phenomenal HR professionals. Some of them then kind of stayed and stuck in the profession. Some of them, it was rotational in terms of a
Mhm.
career development opportunity. And I
Nice.
think it really helped round them out to take on further responsibility and more senior roles, because if you take a functional role, whether it's in finance or HR or some other function,
Mhm.
You learn a functional acumen. We talk a lot about having business
Yes.
acumen,
Mhm.
but there's a functional acumen that senior leaders need to have as well. And you get that. And you learn the inner workings of how a company operates.
Mm.
You learn about governance. You learn about
Yeah.
compliance.
Right.
You see risk from a different perspective.
So
And
true.
so I think that HR is great for people who want to have a long-standing career in HR, or whether they want to do a rotation through it. I'm a big advocate for either way.
I like that. What
Yeah.
advice would you give for some of our maybe younger people out there, or people who are thinking about it that maybe are interested in a career in human resources? And what would you tell them that they should take into consideration if that is something that is of interest to them?
hmm Well, I would first advise anyone to get to know what HR is. Kind of goes back to the first question: what is
Yeah,
HR,
great
and
advice.
what is HR responsible for?
Mhm.
Because you can go in, as you both know and have done different aspects of HR. You can go in, Linda, from payroll, which I
Right.
recall you doing, and that's
Yeah, that's
oftentimes an
right.
HR
Yeah.
function, to talent development or recruitment, or today data analytics,
Yeah.
using
Right.
AI in HR. There's so many elements that a person can do. And so I think when one explores HR, you can look at it, the different functions, and think about, do you want to specialize just in one area, or do you want to go work in an area and then another area and another area? We had a very good rotational program at one point in time where we would we had interns, and then if we hired them, then we'd put them through a rotational program, and it gave them experience in different areas of HR. And it actually, if they decided to specialize, then they also had broad perspective and they understood
Mhm.
the business of HR much better. Even if they only spent 6 to 12 months in a rotational assignment, it gave them a very different perspective.
My
Yeah.
very
I like.
first HR role and I fell into HR as well and found that I loved it. But my very first HR role was for a manufacturing company. And I started to look at specializing after a while in benefits. And my manager came to me and said, Cyndi, as long as you can remain a generalist, remain a generalist. Dip your toe into all the different aspects of HR. And this was many years ago before there was ever even change management or
Mhm.
many other things, many other aspects to HR. I'm so grateful that she said that. So, and I
Yes.
love the approach that you are describing of, doing a rotation so people get the different aspects of HR and just how broad it really is,
Yeah.
so
I
it's
agree. It
pretty
reminds
awesome.
me of when we had Dr. Cooper on, Cindy, and I didn't realize that they did this with doctors going to medical school, that because we were asking
Yeah.
her, why did she go into being an OBGYN? And apparently that is not what she initially went to go
Nope.
and do, but through rotation and trying out the different pieces, it's where she learned that that's what she really fell in love with. And so it's an interesting, I wouldn't even have necessarily thought about how similar those two are from that perspective, in what you just shared with us, Shelie. And I like that as well. You don't have to immediately jump right in, make a decision. To your point, Cyndi, unless you absolutely love benefits and that is like what is the whole thing you want to spend the rest of your career doing, cool. If not, like maybe spend some time and learn and then figure out what are
Yeah.
those areas that really interest you and give you. And you might find that maybe none of them really interest you because you didn't really understand what HR was all about in the first place. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really like that.
Well, before we wrap up, Shelie, I just want to ask you, is there anything that you would recommend to organizations or to leaders when it comes to human resources on
Yeah.
how best to not only partner with them and invite them to the table, as you mentioned before, but also to support them as well so that,
Yeah.
they feel that they're being partnered with, supported, nurtured so that they can also then, return that to the organization.
I don't know of an HR professional who doesn't love to be asked to be involved in something.
Mm,
And maybe that is kind of inviting them to the table. But I think that HR professionals also value, just an acknowledgement of the work and the contributions that they've made.
Yeah.
And so other leaders can, make that visible by just recognizing what has been delivered on. As you well know, when you implement a new program, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And just for a leader to maybe just ask a few questions about, well, what did it take to deliver on this? Or what were some of the challenges that you had? It allows the HR professional to voice his or her view and perspective, and be able to, I don't know, just be acknowledged for the contribution.
Yeah.
HR is just like any other employee. They want to be valued. They want to be partners, and they want to make an impact. And I think that leaders have a big opportunity to bring their HR folks in and acknowledge those contributions.
That's great.
Awesome.
Shelie, I have one more question for you as I was thinking about what you just shared with there is, what if you have someone who is maybe aspiring to go into that senior role with, like, similar to yourself as really being the head of human resources, the head of global human resources? We did an episode, I don't know, at some point, one of our episodes, and we talked about a statistic that the majority of all senior HR leaders who are hired into an organization actually are hired from the outside in. There isn't a succession of moving people up through the ranks to move into those. They're generally hired outside. And I thought that was interesting and a little disappointing, honestly, to think that there wasn't an opportunity. So what advice would you give for maybe someone who is aspiring to be in that leadership role, that they can build that path for themselves within the organization they're at and not feel like the only way they're going to move to that next level is to go find a job somewhere else?
Mm-hmm. Well, HR needs to, practice what we encourage other people to do and have succession plans.
Right.
So that's one thing that needs to happen. But to your point, what can an individual do if they're aspiring to something? So a couple of things come to mind. First is you have to make it known what you're interested in. Many times we just think that somebody can read our mind, or they'll come ask us if we're interested in a more senior role. We have to tell people. I did come up through an organization to be the CHRO for a company, and then we were acquired, and it's a bit of a long story, but then I had the opportunity to be the CHRO of the company that acquired us as well. But one specific example I'll give, maybe I'll give you two quick ones. When I was with the previous company before the acquisition, I reported into the CHRO, and I was basically an HR business partner. And I asked my CHRO and the business leader to meet with me to discuss my development plan.
Nice.
And I had them do it jointly together. And I remember my words were something to the effect of, I'm interested in more senior roles. If there's ever an opportunity, I'd like to be positioned to where I could be considered for it.
I love that.
And I don't know if that was a pivotal moment, but it might have been a pivotal moment.
Sure.
So I think that that's a point of advocating.
Yes.
And then when the company I was with was acquired, I wasn't sure that there would be an opportunity, but I had 10 minutes with the CEO of the company acquiring us. So I just made it known that I would have interest in a senior HR role if there was such an opportunity. So I think you have to do that first. So that doesn't matter what level you are, right? You need to tell people. And I used to, well, I guess I still say this, you got to say it, you got to tell at least 3 people, and you got to tell them at least 3 times, because they're going to forget. And it's okay. If you're not nagging, you got to do that. So I guess that's my piece of advice.
I like that. That's great
so
advice.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
great question
Absolutely.
too.
No, it has been so great to reconnect with you.
Yeah.
That's been the fun part about doing the podcast, honestly. Aside from the fact that Cyndi and I got to come back together again to work together, which has been amazing because I love her to death and we just have so much fun together with doing these things. And then we have had just an amazing opportunity to reconnect with people that we've worked with throughout the years.
Yes.
And it has been so fun to hear all of the incredible things that you all are doing. And then to have you come on and share with our listeners is even better because, Cyndi, we know some pretty incredible people, which has been really, it's really highlighted, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Shelie,
I've been
so much.
following your podcast, and
Ah.
yes, I think it's great the two of you are doing this, and thank you for
Thank
including
you.
me.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending some time with us. Yeah. Well, and if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Shelie, how would they do that?
Right. Good question.
LinkedIn is a great way. So
Awesome.
I'm happy
Okay.
to connect with people and share a perspective or provide a little coaching if I can be helpful.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Yes.
Shelie. Appreciate that.
No, I love that. Well, thanks to everyone. Thanks for our listeners. Cyndi, thanks. It's always good to
Thank
see you.
you,
Shelie, it was
Linda.
wonderful to see you again. I've been following your career over the years, and so it's been really amazing to watch. And now as you're transitioning into this next part of your journey in life, very exciting as well. So we'll look forward to keep watching and seeing what incredible things you do next in this part of your journeys. So, but thanks to all of our listeners out there. And if you like this episode as much as we did, please like, share, subscribe. We always want to hear from you as well. So feel free to drop us a line, and Cyndi and I love to connect with you. So thanks, everyone. And we hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the HR Her Resources podcast. We're so happy to have you with us on this journey. Music and production by Linda Misegadis of LJM Productions. We'd also like to thank our intern, Lauren Banas, for creating our logo and supporting our social media postings. If you'd like to connect with Logan or Lauren, you can find their information in the show notes. If you found value in our discussion and think someone else might as well, please follow, subscribe to our LinkedIn, and share with a friend. Until our next episode, please take care and continue to support one another.